Sensationally silver, because you are.
Hi, I'm Robin Norwood, author of the international bestseller, Women Who Love Too Much. And I'm inviting you to join me in conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who demonstrate that sensationally silver is truly a state of mind. This mindset encompasses well-deserved pride in who and what we are today, rich in years and experience, in strength and hope and wisdom and fortitude and dignity. Come celebrate with us, because we all are truly sensationally silver. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sensationally Silver, a state of mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. And that extraordinary, ordinary part simply means people who aren't world famous celebrities, but are certainly extraordinary in their own right. My guest today is indeed extraordinary. Her name is Ronit Corey, and she is the Santa Barbara dog whisperer. Welcome, Ronit.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
It's great to have you. So my first question is always the same one because you have to qualify to be on this program. How old are you, Ronit?
I am 66.
So I'll just tell our viewers and our listeners, I had to have a friend find out from Ronit how old she was because I was afraid she wasn't old enough, and I didn't want to imply that she was older than she was. I thought she was in her early 50s, but she
Thank you.
qualifies. Yeah. So how old do you feel, Ronit?
I have to say, I feel my age. It's a little hard for me not to feel my age because I'm based in reality, but I have a younger spirit. I can feel that, but I feel like I've been on this earth for 66 years.
Okay. Is there, what would you say is the most challenging part of being your age at this point in your life?
Only the physical limitations, which are a bit of stiffness and nothing terrible, nothing terrible. I'm still doing everything I used to do. In fact, I'm still working with dogs and having good reflexes and, trying not, doing my best and not getting bitten as much as possible.
Yeah. And working with dogs can require a lot of strength sometimes, right? I mean,
Yes, certainly a lot of hand strength, and I have to get on the floor and get back up and bend, and yeah, definitely it's challenging physically.
so I couldn't be a dog trainer today, but I'm very glad you're doing it. Um, what do people of age need to know about having a dog, training a dog, choosing a dog, all those kinds of things?
Right. Okay. So the most important thing about choosing a dog is that you want a dog with a similar energy level to yours. So if you're a low energy person or a medium energy person, you don't want a high energy dog. You want a lower or medium energy dog because dogs require a lot of exercise and activity. And if you can't do that, then you need a dog that's going to be happy being at home more. Although they all need exercise, and you really have to make sure you walk a dog twice a day, 20 minutes. I'm saying, older dogs might need less, but you have to make sure your dog's needs are taken care of. So that's the biggest problem with older people getting dogs. I find that the dog's energy usually doesn't match the human's energy. And so you have to find a lower energy dog is my point.
And sometimes rescue dogs can be a surprise, I suppose. I think often the people who work at the rescues have some knowledge about how this dog operates, what its personality is like. But there can
Right.
be some surprises when you take that dog home, right?
Absolutely. Because dogs that have been in rescue situations, they often don't show who they truly are for a little while. You don't see the true personality. So, but they can tell quite a lot. They can tell quite a lot.
Are
So
there
you have to ask them and also see how the dog behaves. You know, if it's barking at you and very vociferously, then you know that's not your dog. You want a dog that's approaches you gently and slowly. That's a lower energy dog, and that's a more peaceful, balanced dog. You don't want a dog that's all worked up and not happy.
I know for myself, my requirements for a dog changed a lot as I got older. I used to love really big dogs. And while I had a couple of really big dogs, the last big ones I had, it got so I couldn't get them into the car. They got older and weaker. I used to be able to help them in the car, couldn't do it anymore. So I had to pull back as far as size went. And I have small dogs now. My dog that I have presently is very small. I never thought I'd be a small dog person, but oh, is it ever convenient? It's so much easier. And that's probably true for a lot of older people. Maybe they get not only overwhelmed with the energy, but maybe overwhelmed with the size too.
Right, you're absolutely right. I didn't mention that. Of course, you don't want a huge dog that you can't handle, because you don't want them to be the same weight as yours or as you are, or heavier. You want a small dog that you can pick up if you need to, because sometimes there's difficult situations that you don't know how to handle. So you pick the dog up and you walk away if it's small enough.
Hmm. And or getting them to the vet when there's a problem with their motility. Yeah, those are the kinds of things you bump into and go, oh my gosh, I didn't used to have to deal with this. I know I'm not as strong as I used to be, not anywhere close. And I used to be very proud of how much strength I had in my hands and all that. Well,
Right.
that's different today. So Ronit, tell us how you approach training a dog. And I'm sure it's different with every dog and every owner, but kind of in general, what do you do? Yeah.
Okay, so one of the first things I do after I assess the dog and see how the dog is doing, and usually I get called for behavioral problems, like the dog is barking too much, the dog is pulling on the leash, a variety of things like that. Um, so I assess the dog and see the state of mind. Is everything about a dog is state of mind. If the dog is like this, that's an excited or scared or fearful state of mind. It could be one of those. And if the dog looks, the eyes look calm, then you think, oh, that's a good dog. You know, that's an easier dog to work with, probably. There's no guarantees with dogs. So I like to take them out for a walk pretty soon. And in that walk, usually the dogs are pulling. And that's one of the reasons people contact me. The dog is pulling. But by the way, people also contact me because they have a new puppy and they want to make sure the dog grows up and is an easy dog for them to handle. But so we go out for a walk. I like a particular type of collar that it's plastic, but it has little prongs or little teeth. And it's not 100% politically correct. A lot of people don't like it, but harnesses are designed for pulling and tracking, and these collars remind them of the mother's bite. So they sit loose. And if the dog does something you don't like, you give a tiny little pull, and the teeth go again, just like the mother. The mother puts the teeth against the neck of the dog, and the dog stops. And that means stop or slow down. And they pay attention to that right away. And it doesn't hurt them. They have fur, they don't have skin, they have a hide. So we don't have to worry about hurting the dog, but it makes a big difference. But you can use a regular collar, or slip collar is best. And you give little corrections to stop the dog from going ahead of you. And a correction is pulling towards me. And it's not pulling back. Everybody wants to pull back on the leash. And if you pull back, they're straining against you. Even if it's just a momentary thing, they're going against you. So they're not learning what you want. But if you pull to the side or up, that makes a huge difference for training a dog. So we start with the walk, and that's creating structure immediately. It's because normally dogs, our instincts are for children. So when we say to a dog, it's okay, that's what we call soft energy. And a dog wants a leader. A dog's looking for a leader, and a dog wants somebody who has more balanced and clear energy. And so if you stand up straight to a dog, that means clear, and that means balanced energy. It means leader energy. Just that little thing. And I'm mostly working with energy and body language and energy. That's what I'm showing people. That's what I'm using with the dog, and then I'm getting the people to do what I do. And that's what works. It's not anything else. And I'm not using treats. I'm not teaching, we teach them to sit, but it's not all about them doing actions that we tell them to do. It's more about changing the state of mind of the dog from fearful, anxious to more balanced. And it happens through having a leader. That's just the way it goes for dogs. They want clear leadership, and then they feel more relaxed. And then they know they don't have to defend their human or the home that they're living in, and they don't have to bark so much. And you see a huge change as soon as there's leadership in a way that they understand, not what we consider, our leadership in human terms is different. And so it's a matter of learning just a few skills and different ways to approach your dog. There's nothing harmful. There's nothing difficult in what I'm showing. It's all very simple and easy. Some of it is just standing in front of the dog with your finger up. That makes a big difference. And so I usually start with walking, and then I show people how to massage their dog, and I get them to massage really slowly. So you're calming the nervous system down of the dog. And I show them a few techniques. And because, people pet their dogs like really, really, really quickly. And that hypes the dog up. And you can see the dog going into, oh, great. Oh, great. Oh, is there a treat around? And the treats and the petting, we tend to hype our dogs up as opposed to calm them down. So we want to massage really slowly. I use a version of the Tellington touch on the ribs, and other things like this is an acupressure point to calm the dog's brain, and then also the tips of the ears, and everything slowly, which is hard for people because everybody's used to doing everything quickly with the dog. They don't do that with horses. With horses, they approach very calmly and slowly, but somehow with dogs, we think that they want us to excite them. And excitement is actually the enemy. We don't want excitement. It doesn't help us. It doesn't help them. We have too much excitement for them in our society. So that's how I start.
Okay. And I'm just thinking of the dogs sometimes that I see out in the world. I see some very badly behaved dogs, and I see their owners reasoning with them, telling
Yes.
them why they
Yes.
shouldn't do that, which doesn't even work with young children because dogs don't
Right.
reason. They know when, they don't know why.
Yes.
Children until they're 7, they know when, but they don't know why. So
Right.
all these, you shouldn't do that because da 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 da. Oh my God. And I'm just going to throw this into, I was looking for some help with a dog that I rescued. And I went to one of the big brand places where you buy all kinds of pet things. And they were offering this class, and I wanted to go see what it was like. And I have to say, I was appalled. They had sold every person with a dog there in the class all the equipment they could possibly pile on that animal with
Oh,
the
wow.
harness and the thing around the nose. And it was their third lesson in this series that they were offering, and the dogs were so badly behaved. They were all over the place and pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. And I've been to enough obedience classes to know that by the time you finish the first lesson, there's this huge difference in the way the dogs are behaving.
Yeah.
They come in barking and pulling, and pretty soon they're listening and so much calmer and so much more alert. And this was a nightmare. And I know this from horses as well, that sometimes when you feel so out of control and you don't know anything, anybody who tells you anything, you think they're just a hero, oh my God, how wonderful, they know how to, and it can be this tiny piece of information or even misinformation. So I don't know if you have any thoughts that you want to pile on top of that big lecture.
Yes, I do. Well, I didn't mention how to walk a dog. So let's talk about that for a moment. So if the dog, we don't want a dog walking in front of us. Very important bit of information about dogs, because to a dog, whoever's in front is the leader And that leader has to protect whoever's behind them. So it's a big responsibility for a dog to be in front. So we don't want them to be in front because we don't want them to take over the leadership role. That's too much for a dog. All right. So in order to, what we really want is them to walk right next to us so they can see us out of their peripheral vision. That's very important because then they remember we exist. Otherwise, if they're out in front, they might bark at somebody. They might, they're going to make decisions that you're not going to particularly like. So in order to get the dog to walk next to us, we give those little corrections with the leash. Just a little pull to the side is the better one. Up is second best, and back is not ideal. It can work, but it's not ideal. And you give a little correction, and then the dog stops, and you catch up to the dog. So you have to retrain yourself to be next to the dog's neck, like your leg is at the dog's neck. And that's a lot of it is retraining the human because we're used to standing far back and having the dog far in front of us. And I have to keep telling people, now catch up to the dog. Now get to the dog's head. So that is a really, really important part of it. And let me think about everybody in that class is all wild. Well, they haven't really, the class that you're talking about, they haven't really done anything to show leadership. So the dogs are still in their wild state. And there's been no containment of the brain. I feel like when I work with a dog, there's a sort of containment, there's some structure, and that structure makes dogs happy and they calm down.
And there was also that whole thing of having that harness on and pulling against the harness, because giving a cue with a harness is very difficult compared to that little, I
Yes.
think of the word cue because of horses. People think you stop a horse by pulling on their, no, you teach them to stop with a little cue because they're 10 times bigger than we are at least. So
right,
pulling,
exactly.
you're not going to win that one,
Right.
Got to be a little, remember, I'm up here, and you need to be listening to me. So yeah.
No, that's a very good point because everything I'm doing is psychological. It's not physical. The little pull is like a little tap, like, don't forget I exist. Hello, and you're just, and they pay attention to that because that's how dogs communicate with each other. They touch each other. There's a little touch. Often it's a bite. They can bump into each other, or there are different ways they touch each other, but we are emulating, we are reproducing what they do with each other. And that makes a big difference. So even just, hey, and here's an interesting one. A predator moves towards. So if a dog wants to correct another dog, like there's a wild puppy in the room, a dog will move towards. And we're doing that by going, hey, or ch. I like those two sounds best. Ch. And that makes a big difference. But so they move towards. Prey will turn around and run. So if your dog's jumping on you and you go, oh, and you turn around and stop it, that's not going to help the dog. You're better off standing still and going, shh, or walking towards the dog, or using your knee. Just touch the dog with your knee, and that will make a big difference. And they will learn, and they learn really quickly.
So you change the dynamic of what's going on from that dog being the one who's cueing you to move back to you cueing the dog, pay attention to me. I'm the boss here.
Yes, and being in front and moving towards, even just your finger makes a difference. Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear a horror story because I've seen some, sometimes people think it's cute that their dog jumps on someone they don't even know. Somebody like me, you could knock me over. I mean, I'm not as steady on my feet as I used to be. So it's dangerous unless you have a dog that's under control. So stories. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the one that stands out in my mind the most was a jumping puppy, and it was an older couple, and she was the one looking after it the most. And she was in her 70s, and her skin wasn't, her skin bruised easily and tore easily. And this jumping puppy was very high energy, like wrong dog for that person, and it would just scratch at her, jump high enough that it got her arms, and her arms were just completely messed up. And she couldn't, she let it do that for so long. she didn't really have the power. So if a dog has a level 10 intensity, you have to be able to match that level 10 intensity. Whoops, let's see this way. And so if it's going, you have to be able to go, hey, in a very strong way. Most dogs aren't level 10 intensity, but her puppy was. And so she didn't have the power or the wherewithal, perhaps, to keep that dog under control in the ways I showed her. I was able to, but she wasn't. And so she was like out of her mind with, what do I do? I don't want to give this puppy away, and look at my arms and it just keeps jumping and I can't control it and it's eating everybody's socks. And it was just a total disaster. So, you know, she wasn't, I mean, physically it hurt her. So, and anyway, so, you know, she gave up, actually. She gave up doing lessons with me. I hope she did lessons with somebody else, because she really needed help. I mean, we did improve the dog a bit. She got the dog sitting down during breakfast instead of running around and doing things while she was preparing breakfast. We got it better. But, you know, I think she needed at that point just to wait for it to grow up, because it was just way, way, way too young and too high energy for the people involved, and she couldn't take it for enough walks, and she was afraid to take it on the road. And you know, if you have a high energy dog, you need to exercise it a lot. It needs to run, it needs to. And by the way, this walk where they're right next to you, that's called a structured walk, and that's uses much more energy than a walk when they're pulling you, when they're in front of you and pulling you. So you want a structured walk, because they're using mental energy to stay next to you, and it translates into being tired. And you want a tired dog. You don't want your dog to have too much energy.
That makes sense. Of course it makes sense. I'm thinking of a thing that happened to me many, many years ago in my early 20s. I showed St. Bernards, and I remember being at a dog show, and a woman was in a puppy class, but kind of, I guess it was 9 months or something. And she went in the ring with this very out of control St. Bernard, who bolted, and she fell on her face, on her stomach, and got dragged through a puddle out of the show ring. And the judge was so disgusted with her, because you just don't do that. You don't show up at a dog show with a dog that is not under control. It's dangerous for the judge, because they have to put their hands on them. So I learned way, way back with my puppies this little, because they grew a pound every day, to train them to get ready for that kind of a life, to be in a show ring. It was wonderful, wonderful training to get them to have people's hands on them, stand still, walk nicely, change pace, all that stuff. And what I see often is that people regard their dogs with so much compassion that they can't take a position of what you're calling leadership and say, no, I'm the boss. You need to listen to me. For both of our sakes, you need to listen to me. It's like, oh, poor thing. And I mean, dogs aren't poor things. They're beings with their own nature. It isn't human nature. So I'm sure you see that, the overly sympathetic approach to an out of control dog.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that. And yes, and people, and I remembered a show dog I worked with where the woman, she said, all my other dogs were perfect. And this guy was just like all over the place and you know, very hyper. But she actually was a very hyper person. And so we need to approach our dogs in a calm and assertive is what my mentor Cesar Millan says, calm and assertive, but it can be calm. He also says calm, confident, a calm, confident way. And if you go, hey, stop that, now don't do that, all those words make up hyperness. You can't use a bunch of words. So you go, hey, that makes a big difference if you move slowly and you're very deliberate in your movements. And yes, you're right. People feel sorry. They don't want to be the leader. They don't have good boundaries in their own lives and not with their dogs. And yes, it's very important to have good boundaries. For example, and there's not many things we can do in this life to give our dog something, a form of work or boundaries. Like, you know, for example, you can do, if you're cooking in the kitchen, ask your dog to go out. So point. The dog can tell what point means. Monkeys don't understand pointing, but dogs do. Point and ask your dog to go out of the kitchen. Just stand there and point and walk towards him. And he'll go out of the kitchen, and keep him out of the kitchen while you're cooking, because it's dangerous to have a dog underfoot. Plus, it's dangerous for both of you, because the dog can get hurt too with a hot pan. So as soon as you've given it that kind of leadership, it regards you differently. But you can't be feeling sorry for the dog. Oh, poor dog, it had a hard life before me. You forget it. The dog is in the present moment. And the dog it's not thinking about what happened to it in its past. It's very happy with what's going on right now. And in this moment, it needs leadership. And it needs to know that, I mean, here's one of my favorite examples that happened to me. I this student from UCSB, she called me up and was crying on the phone. Actually, she texted me, and I said, can you wait till Thursday? I can help you on Thursday. And then she said, no. And I spoke to her on the phone. I can't wait. It's a new puppy, and I can't sleep, and I can't take a shower, and I can't eat, and I don't know what to do with this puppy. So I said, okay, I'll be over right away. I got in my car and I went to IV. And it was this teeny little puppy. And it was just like, it was scared. It was scared because it didn't have any boundaries. And that's what it turns out it needs. Puppies, dogs, they need boundaries. They want to know what they cannot do so that they know the rest is fine. Oh, I can't go out that door out into the street. Okay, that's fine. I know I can play in here. So I went over there, and I thought, oh, wow, this is a tiny puppy. What am I going to do with this tiny puppy? And I thought, well, I only know how to do one thing. My training, what I've learned works. So I'm going to try it on this little puppy. And I gave it a little hey. And I don't think I even touched it. I think I just went, hey. And it sat down and looked up at me, and she went, ah! And then it was only peeing and pooping inside the house. She couldn't get it to, she could pick it up and put it outside, but it was just shaking. It was terrified. Well, after that, we got it to go outside, and then it peed outside, and she was just in ecstasy. And then she called me up later and said, it pooped outside. And she was so happy. And we gave it it wanted to know what the boundaries were. And that's what made it feel safe. And that's a really clear example, because that was just a puppy. It didn't know anything about the world, but it wanted to know. The mother would give it boundaries. And then it came into this human's house who was afraid. So the human didn't have any leadership, and it didn't have any boundaries. As soon as she gave a little correction on the leash, the dog was, oh, I'm not supposed to go over there. Great. I'll just come over there. I'll come over here instead. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment.
How rewarding. I mean, for everybody involved, for the puppy, for you, for this owner who was trying her best and just didn't have the skills.
Right.
And so much of what you're saying, Ronit, makes me think of raising children, just making it clear and being consistent, and not coming from a place of, oh, you poor thing, you poor thing, you poor thing, but simply, this is the way we do life. Just teaching that being, whether it's got 4 feet or 2, to be a good citizen.
Be a good citizen. I use that expression myself.
Yes. To make it an easier life for everybody. I'm thinking about a class I took years ago again, in obedience at the Humane Societies many years ago. And I saw something that I don't think I'd ever seen before. There was a couple, and they were very kind of, they just were like noodles, they didn't stand up straight. They were so passive, and they had these 2 Scotties, and I'm telling you, those Scotties were not passive. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is like the alter ego that these people have on the other end of the leash. These little dogs, and they were, just full of themselves. And it was, I don't know, have you ever seen that, or was I making that up? I mean, I was really impressed with what I was seeing, how they had sort of funneled all that other stuff that they never expressed into the breed of dog they chose, and then the problems that they were having with that dog.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
The worst dog I've ever come across, from the point of view of, the food aggression thing and wanting to bite its owners, and did bite its owners. The people would just throw the food at the dog and run away. It was a corgi, of all things. So we did a lot of work with that corgi, and I had to put on special shoes because it would try to bite your feet, and I had to put on special gloves. I have special gloves for rabid animals, just in case the dogs want to bite me, because you have to get close enough to the dog to touch it, or to, you have to be able to touch that food and take it away. And one of the they moved, and so it was much better, and things were going better, but it wasn't 100%. When they moved, I said, you now have an opportunity to retrain that dog in the new environment, because his habits are to do with the old environment. And they had never had another problem, because they knew what to do. They moved to a new place. So it's a move can be an opportunity, and it can be a disaster too. Because if you move and you're all up in the air and you don't feel secure, and the dog picks up on that, and you don't do anything to make the dog feel secure, the dog can get worse. And that happens with other things too. Like, anyway, we end up handling things badly. Like, the dog gets bitten by another dog, and we handle, oh my God, poor dog, poor dog. That's not what the dog wants to hear. When one dog gets hurt, another dog walks over, sniffs, checks out the situation, and walks away. They don't go, oh, poor you, poor you. And the poor you makes the dog insecure, because we have soft energy. Oh, poor doggy, I feel sorry for it. So just what you're saying, yeah, that's interesting about the Scotties and those people.
Yeah. So much begins with us, our own confidence, our own willingness to take a stand and be that leader.
And be calm and confident.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we're often really hyper, and we're very busy in our society. We walk quickly, we do everything quickly. Well, the dog wants to take some time and sniff. Don't pull him along, give him a chance to have his moment. When he looks up, that's the time to start moving again. Give the dog a chance to have its dog-like life. We don't understand dogs. They're not like us, as you said. And we have to start being a little more considerate to their needs. A lot of people get a dog for their own needs, right? I'm lonely, I want a dog. Well, please consider the dog too. Please consider what the dog needs and fulfilling its needs, and its biological needs. It needs to walk with its pack. Number one, migrate with its pack. That's the first thing that a dog needs to do. Migrate with its pack. In fact, if you bring a dog into your house, go for a walk with it around the neighborhood before you even go inside. Let it get to know the outdoors first. Let it get to see where it is. Then bring it into one room. Don't give it the run of the house, because it's too much. It's like a kid having too many toys. It's too much for the brain. The brain can't handle it. And the same with toys. Pull out 1 or 2 toys a day and then rotate them. Don't give it a whole bunch of toys. It's too much. It makes them less valuable too. But if you pull out 1 or 2 a day, then, oh, here's a new toy. I haven't seen that one for a while. A few things like that. And also, a dog needs a bed that is in the living room with you. And it can be, I like little small rugs, just a small rug, because they're not so hot as a proper dog bed, which are really designed for nighttime when it's a bit colder. And just a little rug where the dog has its own space that you don't go on. It has its own territory. It's very important for a dog to have its own territory. And then there's a really great exercise to do on a mat. If you happen to be in Santa Barbara, you can ask me to come over and show you. And it's a really interesting psychological exercise. It has to stay on the mat, but not in a way of saying stay, 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 and not in a way of giving treats. But it's a form of work for the dog. But I can't really describe that on here. Let's see what else I have in my notes. If you give them too many treats, and if you give them too many pets, and they're not working for their food, they become neurotic. You have to ignore your dog a little bit. Yesterday, I was working with a puppy, and the puppy was just relaxing, not being a problem, not biting them, just having a little moment on its own. And he calls it over. And I said, if the puppy's happy, let the puppy be, because we're doing it for us. I want to pet the puppy. I want to engage with the puppy, but let the puppy have its own world and be independent. That's great. That's what you want. You don't want it to be needing you every moment. So let it be. Just think about the dog too. Don't just think about what you need. we have to consider the dogs. And yeah.
I think about people who send their dogs off to a trainer and then they get the dog back. And my observation has been that we, as the owner of the dog, need the training more than the dog does. And that's that's not going to solve all the problems. If we have problems holding a boundary or being the leader or whatever, that has to be learned with that dog so that that relationship works.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
absolutely right. And that's why I work one-on-one only. And even if I worked in a group, I would still work one-on-one with each person individually. But yeah, the board and train idea, they have to teach you afterwards. And it can work, but it doesn't always work.
And it doesn't build that relationship between
Exactly.
this person and this animal who don't think the same way. And there has to be some modification in both
Yes.
directions.
Yes, it's all about a relationship with your dog.
Yeah, yeah. Which can't just be based on, I want to be nice. I want to be nice. I want them to love me. I want them to be nice. I think a lot of mistakes get made in general in life because people come from that place. I want to be loved. I'm going to be nice. And the results aren't always good. Yeah.
Right, right. One more thing I'd like to say, if people get two dogs, it's a good idea to have, if you have a male, get a female. If you have a female, get a male. Otherwise, they're more competitive with each other if you have two females or two males. So that's just another tip.
So they're constantly trying to work out the dominance thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the same thing with sibling. Have you heard about that? Where they have I've forgotten the expression for it, but it's two people get two males from the same litter, or even a male and a female from the same litter. They are not in nature meant to stay together. So they become very competitive with each other. It's a very big problem for people. It can be, and it mostly is. And they cannot listen to the humans. They don't pay attention to the humans much, and they're focused on each other. But that's not the way it happens in nature. They go off on their own. So keeping them together, oh, it seems so nice. I want to adopt two from the same litter. You can end up with very big problems.
And I'm seeing that in shelters that they say these two come from the same litter and they're bonded, so they need to be adopted together. And you're saying, maybe not. Yeah.
Wow, I'm surprised they don't know about this.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Well, Ronnie, really quickly, because we're going to have to wind up pretty soon,
Yep.
I want to
Yep.
come back to you for a moment. And I want to ask how you came to be doing the training that you're doing. Did you
Okay.
discover that? How? How did you come?
Okay.
Go on
Well,
that path.
I started off as a teacher of the Alexander technique, which is done on humans, though it can be done on animals too. But it's mostly talking to someone and using the hands-on, very non-doing, what we call non-doing hands. So there's no manipulation. You put your hands on someone, and you help them figure out how to let go. And you help them become taller and wider. And it's used a lot for actors, and it's used for dancers, anybody doing public speaking. It's used for people who have back pain and can't finish their degree playing their violin because there's too much tension. I've helped a lot of people finish their degrees with either a guitar or a violin or whatever instrument is hurting them because of all the excess tension. So it's about undoing tension. So through that, I became good at observing humans. And I wasn't a dog person. I never had a dog. And I have a child, and he's an only child, and my friend said to me, you have to get a dog spirit for him. So I said, okay. So we went to the pound, went to the shelter, and we came back with this male dog. And they said, oh, he's fine with everybody, fine with men, fine with women, fine with kids. And he wasn't. It wasn't true. And he wasn't fine with dogs either. And he tried to bite my husband immediately. And I thought, oh my God, we've got a problem. So I hired a trainer, and it didn't work. I mean, basically, she gave me an e-collar, and it didn't stop his behavior. And so I started studying, and I started looking around, and somebody at the dog park says, you have to listen to Cesar Millan. You have to watch him. And he kept bothering me to do it. And I did. And I realized, wow, he was really right. This is right up my alley. It's all about energy and body language. That's something I can understand. And I started working with dogs at first as a pet healer, because I was going to do the Alexander hands-on. And they were coming to me with like aggressive boxers. And I said, I think you need a trainer. This is before I became a dog trainer. And he said, I'm reaching out to you. I want help from you. Like, oh gosh. So I took down my little shingle, which was very successful, my dog healing thing. But, and I thought, I've got to study. If people are going to bring me aggressive dogs, I have to know what to do. And then I started watching Caesar a lot, and I was able to do what he did by just watching. I understood what he was doing, and I was able to do it. So I started doing some training, and then I got a place on one of his courses, and I met him. And, you know, although I was doing, I really wanted to feel his energy and feel that he's huge. He's got huge energy. No wonder all the dogs pay attention to him, you know. He's got so much love, and he's so warm and so loving. I mean, he's an incredible man. And that gave me just gave me a little leg up. I was already doing it, but it helped to meet him and be on his course. And then I can say I've been trained by him. And yeah, so that's how it started, with a difficult dog.
Yeah, I think a lot of our lessons start that way, that end up being paths in our life. Ronit, one last question. What
Sure.
would you say to the people who are with us today, persons of age? Do you have a closing thought or wish or anything that you want to communicate to this audience that's with you right now?
Yes, enjoy your life and enjoy your dog, and allow, and just, if you're happy, your dog is happy. Just be calm and enjoy yourself. And we tend to worry so much. Let's just be at the dog. Let the dog be your teacher, and be in the moment, and smell the roses, you know.
That's beautiful. I think that's one of the reasons we have animals, because they are in the moment and they remind us to be in the moment too. So
Yes.
thank you, Ronit, so much
Thank
for
you
being
so
with us today.
much.
It's been a delight. And I just imagine people may need to watch this again and again, because you've given us so many tips about how to handle this other form of life that we know so intimately. I mean, they're right there in our dwelling, in our hearts, and we need to be able to relate to them as dogs from the human point of view. Okay, thanks everybody. Thank you, Ronnie. Bye.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, bye-bye.
Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver.